Look, everything has a beginning, and for the American quarter, that story starts way back in 1796. The United States was still a young country, they needed their own money, they didn't want to use British or Spanish coins anymore. So, the US Mint got to work. The very first quarter was called the Draped Bust Quarter. It was designed by a guy named Robert Scott. He was the chief engraver of the mint. This coin was a big deal. It was one of the first pieces of silver money made for the American people. It showed everyone that the United States was a real, independent nation with its own currency. These first quarters looked very different from what you have in your pocket today. On the front, you had a picture of Lady Liberty. She had flowing hair and a ribbon. Her bust was, well, draped in cloth, which is how the coin got its name. It wasn't a real person, just a symbol of freedom. The back of the coin had a small eagle. It was kind of a scrawny-looking bird perched on a cloud and surrounded by a wreath. It's not the powerful eagle we see on coins now. These early coins were also made of silver, about 90% silver to be exact. That's why they feel heavier than modern quarters. Now here's what makes these old coins interesting to a guy like me. Rarity. The mint didn't make a lot of them. In 1796, they only produced about 6,000 quarters. That's it. Think about how many quarters are made today. Billions. After that first year, they didn't even make any more quarters until 1804. So, finding a 1796 quarter is like finding a needle in a haystack. These coins are incredibly rare. Most of them were used, passed from hand to hand, and eventually melted down. Very few survived, and even fewer survived in good condition. That's why they are so valuable. So, if one of these walks into my shop, my eyes light up. A 1796 draped bust quarter is a true piece of American history. It tells a story about the birth of our nation. Because they are so rare, they can be worth a fortune. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars, even for one in rough shape. If you find one in mint condition, which is almost impossible, you could be looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's the kind of thing collectors dream about. It's not just a coin, it's a relic from a time when America was just getting started. And in my business, history is money. Time marches on, and so do coin designs. By the late 1800s, people were getting tired of the old seated Liberty design that had been around for decades. They wanted something new, something that reflected a more modern America. So, in 1892, the US Mint introduced a new set of coins, the dime, the quarter, and the half dollar. They all had the same design on the front. This design was created by the Mint's chief engraver, Charles E. Barber. And because of him, we call these coins the Barber coinage. It was a clean, classic look that defined American money for over 20 years. The Barber quarter featured a new portrait of Lady Liberty. This time she was facing to the right. She wore a Phrygian cap, which is a symbol of liberty, and a laurel wreath. It was a very Roman-looking design, very stately and formal. On the back, the coin had a big, majestic eagle. This eagle was based on the Great Seal of the United States. It held an olive branch in one talon and arrows in the other, symbolizing peace and strength. It was a powerful statement for a country that was becoming a world power. These quarters were minted every year from 1892 until 1916. Now you might think that since they made these for over 2 decades, none of them are rare, but you'd be wrong. In the world of coin collecting, it's all about the details. Some years, the mint made millions of quarters. Other years, they made very few, and they were made at different mints. Philadelphia, which has no mint mark, San Francisco, and New Orleans. The key to value is finding the coins with the low production numbers from the right mint. These are what we call key dates. They are the hardest ones to find to complete a collection. The king of the Barber quarters is the 1901S. The San Francisco Mint only struck about 72,000 quarters that year. That is an incredibly small number. Many of them were heavily used in circulation, so they got worn down or lost. Finding a 1901S Barber quarter in any condition is tough. If you find one that's in decent shape, it can be worth thousands of dollars. Find one that looks like it just came from the mint, you're talking about a serious payday. Other rare dates include the 1896S and the 1913S. It just goes to show you, even with common-looking coins, one little letter and date can make all the difference. After the Barber quarter, it was time for another change. In 1916, America was on the brink of entering World War I. There was a wave of patriotism across the country. The Mint wanted a new coin design that captured this spirit. The result was the Standing Liberty Quarter, designed by a sculptor named Herman A. McNeil. This is one of the most beautiful coins America has ever produced. It's a real work of art. The design was bold and full of symbolism. It showed Lady Liberty stepping forward, ready to defend the nation. On the front, you see a full-length figure of Liberty. She is walking toward the east, where the war in Europe was raging. In one hand, she holds a shield for protection. In the other, she holds an olive branch for peace. But here's where the controversy started. In the first version, made in 1916 and part of 1917, one of her breasts was exposed. Some people were shocked by this. The Society for the Suppression of Vice complained. They said it was immoral. So, in the middle of 1917, the Mint changed the design and gave Liberty a coat of chainmail to cover her up. This controversy created two different versions of the coin, which is great for collectors. We call them Type 1, with the bare breast, and Type 2, with the chainmail. The Type 1 coins were only made for a short time, which makes them scarcer. Especially the 1916 Standing Liberty Quarter, only 52,000 were made. That makes it one of the rarest quarters of the 20th century. If you ever find a 1916 Standing Liberty, you've hit the jackpot. It can be worth thousands, even in poor condition. It's a coin that has a great story, a beautiful design, and extreme rarity. Another problem with this coin was the date. It was placed on a raised pedestal where Liberty stands. Because it was so high, it wore off very quickly in circulation. You'll find a lot of Standing Liberty quarters where the date is completely gone. We call these dateless coins. They aren't worth much, but they tell a story of a design flaw. In 1925, the Mint fixed this by sinking the date into the pedestal so it would be protected. This is why finding these quarters with a clear full date is so important for their value. It's all in the details. In 1932, it was time for another new quarter. This time, the coin was meant to honor the 200th birthday of our first president, George Washington. The Mint held a competition for the design. A sculptor named John Flanagan won. His portrait of Washington has been on the quarter ever since. It's one of the most recognizable coins in the world. For more than 90 years, this image of Washington has been in the pockets and purses of every American. It has become a true icon of American money, a constant in a world that is always changing. Flanagan's design was simple and strong. On the front, we have the profile of George Washington, based on a sculpture by Jean-Antoine Houdon. It's a classic, dignified portrait. The word liberty is above his head, and in God we trust is to his left. On the back, we have a majestic bald eagle with its wings spread wide, perched on a bundle of arrows. It's a symbol of American strength and readiness. This design was used for decades. The biggest change came in 1965 when the price of silver got too high. The Mint stopped making quarters out of 90% silver and switched to a clad composition of copper and nickel. This switch from silver to clad is a huge deal for collectors. All Washington quarters made between 1932 and 1964 are 90% silver. This means they have a base value just for the metal they contain. We call them junk silver, but they are far from junk. When silver prices go up, their value goes up too. People love to collect these silver quarters. They feel different, they sound different when you drop them, and they represent an older era of American money. Always check the date on a Washington quarter. If it's 1964 or earlier, you've got silver. Even with a coin that's been made for so long, there are still rare dates to look for. The first year of issue, 1932, is a key one. The Mint didn't make as many quarters that year because it was the middle of the Great Depression. The two rarest are the 1932D and the 1932S, which were made at the Denver and San Francisco Mints. They had very low production numbers, just over 400,000 each. Compare that to the tens of millions made in other years. Finding a 1932D or a 1932S Washington quarter is a huge find for any collector. They can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on their condition. So, you're digging through a jar of old coins. You're wondering, what makes one quarter worth a fortune while another is just a quarter? Well, it comes down to three main things. I call them the big three: rarity, condition, and errors. You really need to understand these three things if you want to find treasure. It's not just about how old a coin is, you know. Sometimes a new coin can be worth more than an old one. It's all about supply and demand. How many were made, how many are left, and how many people want them. First, let's talk about rarity. This is honestly the most important factor. Rarity just means there are not a lot of them around. This can happen for a few reasons. Sometimes the mint just didn't produce many of a certain coin in a specific year and at a specific mint. We call this a low mintage. The 1932 D Washington quarter is a perfect example. They made very few, so there are very few to go around. Rarity can also happen when most of the coins were melted down, like the early silver quarters. The fewer there are, the more collectors are willing to pay to get one. Next up is condition. In the coin world, we call this grade. A coin's grade is a measure of how much wear and tear it has. A coin that has been passed around in pockets for 50 years will be worn down, scratched, and damaged. We'd call that a low-grade coin. But a coin that was put away and saved right after it was made will look brand new. It will have all its original detail and luster. We call this a mint state or uncirculated coin. The difference in value between a low-grade coin and a high-grade coin can be gigantic. A common coin in perfect condition can be worth more than a rare coin in terrible condition. Finally, we have errors. The US Mint produces billions of coins, and well, sometimes mistakes happen. These mistakes can create some very valuable and interesting coins. For example, sometimes a coin is struck on the wrong kind of metal blank. Imagine a quarter struck on a dime blank. That's a major error. Other times a coin might be struck twice, creating a doubled image. This is called a doubled die error. The 1937 doubled die obverse Washington quarter is a famous example. These errors are not supposed to leave the mint, but some slip out. Collectors go crazy for them because they are so unusual and rare. Every collector has a dream list. These are the holy grail coins, the ones that are so rare and so valuable that finding one is a life-changing event. For quarter collectors, there are a few that stand out above all the rest. These are the coins that stories are told about. They are the pinnacles of a collection, the ones that can sell for the price of a house. Let's talk about a few of these legendary quarters. They are the superstars of the collecting world, and for good reason. They combine history, rarity, and a great story. The top of the list for many is the 1796 draped bust quarter. As I mentioned, this was the very first quarter. With a mintage of only 6,146, it's incredibly rare from the start. Over 200 years, most have been lost or destroyed. Today, experts believe only a few hundred still exist in any condition. Finding one is the discovery of a lifetime. A nice, uncirculated example of this coin sold at auction for over $1.7 million. That's right, million. It's not just a coin, it's a piece of American history that you can hold in your hand. That's what makes it a true, holy grail. Another legend is the 1823/2 capped bust quarter. This one is all about an error called an overdate. Back then, the dies used to strike coins were made by hand. If a die from a previous year was still good, they would sometimes punch the new date over the old one. In this case, they punched a 3 over a 2 to make an 1823 die, but you can still see parts of the old 2 underneath the 3. For some reason, this is the only date of this quarter type that is extremely rare. It's a huge challenge for collectors to find one, and they can be worth well over $100,000 in good condition. Let's not forget the modern rarities. In 1965, when the mint switched from silver to copper nickel, a few mistakes were made. A small number of 1965 quarters were accidentally struck on the old 90% silver planchets. These are called transitional errors. A regular 1965 quarter is worth 25 cents. A 1965 silver quarter can be worth over $10,000. It looks almost the same, but it weighs more and has a silver edge instead of a copper one. It's the ultimate modern treasure. It proves that you don't have to look at 200-year-old coins to find something incredible. Sometimes, the biggest prize is hiding in plain sight. The best part of this business is the stories. It's not just about the items, it's about how they were found. And with coins, some of the best stories come from regular people who just got lucky. People who looked at their pocket change a little more closely and found something amazing. These stories prove that you don't have to be a professional with a metal detector to find a rare coin. Sometimes, all it takes is a sharp eye and a little bit of knowledge. These are the stories that keep the treasure hunt alive for everyone. I remember a story about a man in Louisiana who was an amateur coin collector. He liked to go to the bank and buy rolls of quarters to search through. It's a hobby called coin roll hunting. For years, he found a few silver quarters, and other minor things. But one day, he opened a roll of quarters and saw something that didn't look right. The edge was solid silver, not copper. He looked at the date, and it was from the 2000s. It turned out to be a statehood quarter that was mistakenly struck on a silver-proof planche. It was an error coin worth thousands of dollars, found in a simple roll from the bank. Then there's the story of the Wisconsin Extra Leaf Quarters from 2004. The statehood quarter program was huge, and the mint was making billions of coins. But for the Wisconsin quarter, something strange happened at the Denver Mint. Some of the dies used to strike the coins had an error. It created what looks like an extra leaf on the ear of corn on the back of the coin. Some people say it looks like the leaf is pointing down, that's the low leaf, and some say it's pointing up, that's the high leaf. No one knows for sure how it happened, but these error coins got out into circulation. People started finding them in their change. At first, no one knew what they were, but as word spread on the internet, the hunt was on. People across the country were checking every Wisconsin quarter they could find. These extra leaf quarters started selling for hundreds of dollars each. It was a modern-day treasure hunt. It showed that even with brand new coins, there are still valuable varieties to be found. It made a lot of people look at their change in a whole new way, and it all started because someone noticed a tiny detail that was out of place. It's a perfect example of how paying attention can literally pay off. Everyone thinks they know the quarter. It's been a part of American life for generations, but there are a lot of strange and surprising facts about this coin that most people have never heard. These are the little details that make the history of the quarter so fascinating. They are the kind of trivia that can make you look at that coin in your hand a little differently. For instance, did you know that for a long time, the quarter was not a very popular coin? People preferred to use 2 dimes and a nickel. Here's a fun one. The edge of a quarter has ridges on it. We call this a reeded edge, but why is it there? It's a security feature that dates back to when coins were made of precious metals like silver and gold. Dishonest people would clip or shave off tiny bits of metal from the edge of the coins. Over time, they could collect a lot of silver or gold dust. The reeded edge made it easy to see if the coin had been tampered with. If the ridges were shaved off, you knew someone had clipped the coin. The practice has stuck around even though our quarters are no longer silver. Another interesting fact is about the bicentennial quarter from 1976. To celebrate the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, the Mint created a special design for the back of the quarter. It featured a colonial drummer boy. All bicentennial quarters have the dual date 1776 to 1976 on the front. What most people don't know is that the Mint started making them in 1975, so there are no quarters dated 1975. If you ever see a quarter with that date, it'd say the bicentennial design was so popular that they made over 1.6 billion of them, so they are not rare, but they are a cool piece of history. Finally, let's talk about the 50 State Quarters program, which ran from 1999 to 2008. This was one of the most successful programs in the Mint's history. It got millions of people interested in coin collecting for the first time. But did you know that the designs were not created by the US Mint? Each state was responsible for submitting its own design concepts. The governor of each state would usually review the submissions and send the final choices to the Secretary of the Treasury for approval. This meant that the quarters truly represented the people and places of each state, making the collection even more meaningful. So, you've heard the stories, you know what to look for, and you're ready to start your own treasure hunt. The good news is, it's one of the easiest and cheapest hobbies to get into. You don't need a lot of fancy equipment. All you need is a good eye, a little bit of patience, and some knowledge. The first step is simple. Start looking at the change you get every day. Don't just throw it in a jar. Take a few seconds to look at the date and mint mark of every quarter that passes through your hands. You never know what you might find. A great way to get a lot of quarters to search is through coin roll hunting. You can go to any bank and ask to buy a roll of quarters. A roll has 40 quarters in it, so it costs $10. You can take the roll home, open it up, and search through every single coin. Look for silver quarters. That's 1964 and earlier. Look for the rare dates like the 1932D and 1932S. Look for errors like the Wisconsin Extra Leaf. When you're done, you can take the quarters you don't want back to the bank and get your money back or get another roll. It's a treasure hunt that costs you nothing but time. To help you know what you're looking for, it's a good idea to get a guidebook. Something like a guidebook of United States coins, which we call the Red Book, is perfect. It lists every US coin ever made, with pictures, mintages, and estimated values. It will teach you how to identify different coin types, grades, and errors. You should also get a small magnifying glass. A 5 times or 10 times magnifier will help you see small details, like mint marks and doubled dies that you might miss with the naked eye. These two tools are a beginner's best friend. The most important advice I can give you is to be patient and have fun. You probably won't find $1 million coin on your first try. You might search through thousands of quarters and find nothing but common dates. But don't get discouraged. The thrill of the hunt is part of the fun. Every coin you look at is a chance to find something amazing. And when you finally do find that silver quarter or that rare error, the feeling is incredible. It's a connection to history, a story to tell, and maybe, just maybe, a nice little profit. Happy hunting.